I am Dracula.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Graveyard Club podcast. Today, we are talking about White Zombie.
Zombie! Allez vite! Allez! Get up!
We're finally moving away from the mummy movies. We're going to talk about something else. So, joining me today on the podcast, we have, of course, Bryan Dragon, Zontarr, Being Without a Face. Joined us back from a couple of episodes ago that helped us out with the mummy reviews. We have Chris, Mr. C. So we have a nice panel here today where, as I said, we're finally moving on to them mummy movies. I was literally dreaming about the mummy. We were reviewing them that much, so it's nice to finally move on to something else. And of course, we're going to talk about White Zombie, starring Bela Lugosi. This is said to be the first zombie movie ever. Now, I'm not sure how true that is. But what's interesting about this one, is when people think of zombie movies, they straight away go to the George A. Romero movie, they go to The Walking Dead. This is a completely different sort of zombie movie, which is interesting because, and I'm sure Bryan will give us a little background about what this movie is based on, because if I read correctly, it's based on a novel called The Black Magic, which came out in the late 1920s.
The Magic Island. It's actually a travelogue by William C. Brooke about his time in Haiti, where he basically introduced voodoo and the zombie to a wider audience.
So maybe, yeah. So it's interesting because that's what the original zombie was. It was Haitian. It was voodoo. When people think of zombies now, they're flesh-eating, kind of lumbering corpses. Which, in a way, they are corpses in this movie, but they're not bloodthirsty. They're completely different. They're being mind controlled, of course, by Bela Lugosi. He's a very interesting character in this one. I've a lot to say on Bela Lugosi. He's one of my favourites from the time. The White Zombie, 1932, I believe. This was a pre-code horror movie. Not sure if anyone here familiar with the pre-code movies of the time. Like the 1940s. Zontarr, of course. Like, it was an interesting time. I think the 1930s could be my favourite decade of horror movies because obviously the pre-code, you got a lot of interesting stories. Universal kind of had a few pre-code ones in there, but I think, in my opinion, they kept it kind of squeaky clean compared to a lot of other movies at the time. I'm not sure, like, this is my first time watching this movie. Has anyone here seen this movie before today's show?
Oh, yes, many times. I actually have the Blu-ray mentioned, specifically the Kino Blu-ray, which was, of course, mentioned on James Ropes and Mike Mattai's commentary of the film, but they were referencing the DVD, but it's still Kino, so it's still a good one to get.
I believe that Kino... I'll go ahead, man.
I was going to say, I too have that, the Kino Blu-ray. I also have it because it is a widely available film through its public domain status. It appears infrequently with Night of the Living Dead on a few of like the big zombie movie releases where it's just a bunch of random films that are cobbled together. So it's usually like White Zombie or Revolt of the Zombies. Something of a sequel of this, mixed with those films. So that's how I became familiar with them.
Chris, what about you, man? Have you seen this movie before?
I had seen it before on Svengoolie, of course, a couple of years back. And then in addition to the movie, the mask, like the costume mask with the rendition of Bella's face. And as I had just put in one of the chat threads over here, there are, some high quality White Zombie action figures, but coming back just to the movie itself, this was the first time I took notes on it. So so I did do my homework, but I'm also, I'm here to lower expectations because it was a more nuanced, right? Bella's obviously known for Dracula the best, and known for Igor, and Son of Frankenstein. So I have less, time spent with the white zombie character. So I'm here to go, but I also want to lower my own expectations of how I'll be able to go at it.
I'm sure we're going to learn everything today, man. We have a good crew of people here. I think we're going to dig into a lot about this movie. Zontarr, what about you, man? Have you seen this one before? I'm sure you have.
Yeah, at some point I did I watch all the zombie movies before Night of the Living Dead, and there's not many. There's less than 10. There's this and Revolt of the Zombies, Plague of the Zombies, I Walk with a Zombie. There's not really very many. But yeah, I've seen it, but it's been ages. But I rewatched it this week for this.
It's interesting, like them pre George A. Romero zombie movies could be interesting to dig into, as you said, Zontarr, the Revolt of the Zombies, the Hammer movie, Plague of the Zombies. All from what if I'm right in saying, they're all set in like Haitian, if not so voodoo style zombies. They might be interesting to dig into because, as people know, like when you think of zombies, it's they're flesh eating kind of corpses now. The zombies in this movie are completely different. Really excited about talking about this one today. So go ahead, man.
If I may read William Seabrook's definition of the zombie directly from the Magic Island, if everyone's okay with that.
Go ahead, man.
A soulless human corpse, stone dead but taken from the grave and endowed by sorcery with a mechanical semblance of life. It is a dead body, which is made to walk and act and move as if it were alive.
That's pretty much a perfect description right there, man. And
that is literally the description right there of the zombies featured in this film.
And like I was reading a little bit into the Magic Island, Bryan. I believe only a part of that novel is what the basis of this movie is. Am I right?
Yeah, well, yeah. As I said, it's a travelogue. It's non-fiction.
Mm-hmm.
I've not read the entire thing, and I haven't even got into the part with the where Seabrook learned about zombies yet. I had to look up that bit on Wikipedia. The line I just read on Wikipedia, but that's because there's a lot going on it.
Interesting.
I mean, just last night, I read about a voodoo ritual where a girl and a goat, involving a girl and a goat, and the girl became a goat, and a goat's cry sounded more like a human cry. Oh my lord, it's really something to read about.
That sounds like something.
And keep in mind, non-fiction.
Oh, is it non-fiction?
Yeah, non-fiction. It's a book. It's by explorer and traveler William Seabrook. He was also an occultist, a journalist. So, yeah, like, this is like some old school religious ceremony type thing.
That sounds like some fucked up shit to me, man. I'm gonna check that out. That actually sounds fucked up. And one of the things about the movie that we're talking about today that I found, it was shot in the backlots of Universal Studios. I'm not sure if that's 100% correct, but this was a low budget movie of the time, and the sets were stunning. Before we get into a little bit about it, just like a little bit of background about the movie, I noticed at the very start of in the credits, the opening credits, we have Jack Pearce doing the makeup in this movie. Did anyone catch that or even know that?
I caught that pretty not early on, but later on. I think I was like watching it on one of my annual or so watches, and I was like, Jack Pearce, and I looked it up and I was like, oh shit. Apparently all he did was exaggerate Lugosi's widow's peak and obviously his eyebrows.
Really? So he didn't touch he didn't do any of the zombie makeup?
That's all I could find on it, but I'm pretty sure like this is Jack Pierce. Of course he did the zombie makeup. There's no way, but all I could apparently find was him having done the exaggeration of the widow's peak and facial hair and stuff like that.
The unibrow.
The vague existence of the unibrow that's just growing in that never gets shaved off. That somehow enhances the Lugosi stare in every way.
That was a three-dimensional unibrow. If I ever saw one, it had some weight and thickness to it.
Yeah, Bela Lugosi, Jack Pierce, some sets from Universal, but sadly it is not a Universal film, so I doubt we won't see a Universal Monsters comic book miniseries.
It's on the contrary. It's the lost Universal monster movie. It's the one they didn't make but allowed production on.
That's very fucking interesting, man. So what we basically have here is basically a little bit of a lower budget Universal movie that just happened to be distributed by a different company, which I think ended up being United Artists, which released a lot of kind of low budget movies at the time. But yeah, that is a shame that it didn't get the proper Universal budget release, and yeah, it's not really counted as a Universal classic. Interesting though, but Bela Lugosi in this movie, he was fresh coming off of Dracula, which I think was the year prior to this movie, if I'm right in saying.
Yeah, it was.
Even in this movie, it makes use of his eyes. There's a lot of scenes in this one where it's just like it's flashing of his eyes, which is quite reminds me of what they were doing in Dracula. This is a top tier Lugosi role for me.
I think this was one of his favorite films, according to Bela Lugosi Jr.
Yeah, I was reading a bit into the trivia as well. Apparently, this was one of his favorite roles. And unfortunately, it was one of his roles that he found that he was severely underpaid for. Which, if you read enough about Lugosi, I think he was pretty much underpaid his entire career. Like, he was severely underpaid for Dracula. And I don't know. I don't know if he lacked a good like manager or something back then. But it's a pity because he was one of the best in early 30s movies, and his career never really took off as much as say Boris Karloff. I'm not sure if
the way I've looked at it when it comes to Lugosi had the name that was required of like the star power, but they just never saw any real value in him outside of that. Like, if you really look at like his later career of Ed Wood, there's so many people who are like, oh, well, you know, he and Lugosi were friends, and Bela Jr. was like, no, he used my father, and it's really a mix of both. Like, Lugosi was getting work because of Ed, but Ed was like very much exploitative of the name Bela Lugosi.
Because he was the only big name he could get.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Tor Johnson's pretty big, so.
It's a pity because I really rate Bela Lugosi. There's a lot of films that he was in between the 30s and 40s. I could name a few off here. The Corpse Vanishes, I'd really recommend if people haven't seen it, that are listening. The Invisible Ghost. Bride of the Monster is a bit of a fun one as well. He does it like he did kind of typecast himself into these kind of evil foreign scientist, kind of evil doctor roles. And that's why this one's a little bit of a standout one, because in this movie he plays a voodoo master that enslaves these zombies and basically puts them to work in a sugar mill, which is quite random. Again, as I said earlier, like this is set in Haiti, so it's a different setting for a 30s movie. It kind of has that gothic feel of a Universal movie, but we're in somewhere completely foreign, which is very interesting. We'll get into it a little bit about the plot. So as I said, the opening credits, we hear Haitian voodoo type music. We obviously get the Jack Pierce name drop. Our main characters in this one is Madeleine and Neill. They're in Haiti and they're wanting to get married. They're on the way through the country and they pass by a group of people that appear to be digging up a grave. Quite weird. We don't necessarily know who or what they're doing at that time.
It's actually explained in the film what they're not digging up a grave. It's because of grave robbers and like going into cemeteries. They're digging up the road for a grave.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I did miss that. But Bela
Yeah.
Lugosi stops the carriage halfway through, and this is when we get the first appearance of him. I'm not sure how to say his name in this movie. If anyone here knows,
Murder Legendre. I think that's how Christopher Lee pronounces it in Le.
That's
And-
how I've heard it pronounced too. I usually just go with Murder Legendre. Kind of put that French accent on that thing, that Creole,
and
that Tony Chachet.
and speaking about French, there's a lot of people that say like Monsieur and Madame in this movie. Like, there's obviously some sort of French like weird influence between the characters in this one, which is, I don't know, it's just maybe just a.
Well,
I
one
think
of the
Haiti's
languages. Yeah, it's like French Creole.
let's see, a country in the Caribbean. Official languages: Haitian Creole and French.
Yeah, the French.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So I
colony.
did not know that. So like they did. So that would have been normal enough. The couple are on the way to the house of Monsieur Beaumont, and we'll talk a little bit more about him in this movie. He's just as an evil cunt as Lugosi in this movie. I think he's sometimes even worse. And as I said, Lugosi sticks his head into the carriage and takes Madeleine's scarf, just randomly. So they get to the house. Madeleine shows. This is weird. Madeleine knows Beaumont from a voyage to New York, so straight away there's a little bit of like kind of, I wouldn't say like a love triangle, but Beaumont obviously loves Madeleine, and he's actually working behind the scenes with Lugosi in hopes to marry her. So that's kind of the first part of the movie. It kind of sets it up. They're now staying, weirdly enough, in a place where Madeleine, like, she knew the guy from a voyage, and now that they want to get married in Haiti, and they're staying in this guy's house, which is quite weird. But we do. Beaumont goes to Bela Lugosi's mill, and this is where we kind of get our first major scene of the zombies working. And what did you guys think about? I know we kind of see them earlier walking over the hill, which is quite. I actually forgot to mention, which is actually a quite nice scene when we first see Bela Lugosi. Once they keep going, we see the zombies walking across the mountain. But what did you guys think of like the sugar mill scene when you first walk in like that? Like, it was quite creepy, I thought.
Yeah, it's very creepy, and it does make you kind of jolt when the one zombie phones right, like into the grinder.
Yes.
I think it's kind of reminiscent of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre a little bit, with the noise. Like, there's no music accompanying it. There's no score. It's just the sounds of everything that's going on here, kind of amplified in its own sense. And in comparison to Chainsaw, it's the fact, like, all the music, quote unquote, like the score was actually nothing more than just the sounds of a slaughterhouse. So it's kind of reminiscent in that sort of creep factor.
Yeah, so, like, especially from a film from the 30s, like, a lot of the Universal movies were quite sleek in their sound design. This one was quite interesting. Like, so Beaumont, the idea of this partnership between Beaumont and Lugosi is he wants to stop the wedding, and in hopes that Madeleine will fall in love with him and they get married, blah, blah, blah. Lugosi has the solution, and basically he wants to turn her into a zombie. Which, if I was Beaumont, I don't know how that would make much sense. He gives Beaumont some sort of zombie poison that he ends up giving it to her on the day of her wedding. So, like, this is all happening within the day. If I'm wrong, if I could be right in saying this, this all happens within the day that they get to Haiti. Like, I could be wrong there. But the wedding happens quite quickly, and of course, I think he gives her a flower that's laced with this zombie poison. Well, I suppose it's not a zombie poison, it's poison that kills her, and then they end up, obviously, stealing her grave, resurrect her as a zombie. So this is where the movie kind of splits in two ways then. So we get Beaumont, that's with Madeleine, that's kind of convince her that that she might love him more like throughout the film, and then we get Neill that works with the Doctor that I actually forget to mention at the start of this movie. There's kind of an on-running joke with him that he always needs a light for his pipe. So Neill and the Doctor try and find out where she is. And yeah, the movie basically splits off in two for a little bit. This is not really a long movie. This is barely over an hour long. I think an hour and 7 minutes long. But
Hour and 8, according to my Blu-ray.
an hour and 8. But Bryan flexing his Blu-ray here. Well, actually, like speaking about that, I have the DVD. I'm not sure if it's the Kino. I'm actually unsure which release my DVD is. The quality is brutal on it. It's really bad.
Then I'm gonna wager it's probably not.
But,
I was gonna say the quality of it. I know Kino did a remaster of it, and that's I think the version that we're all kind of at least me and Bryan and probably a few of us here are familiar with. But I have seen the poorer quality version. That's the one that I was introduced to that would pop up again infrequently on these 50 or 100 or whatever plus horror movies with all these other public domain movies, which some have been very great quality and some of them are like, did you pick this out of a meat grinder? Because I can't know what I'm looking at.
And that's what's tough. I love collecting Blu-rays and DVDs, and most of the time the ones I come by are unfortunately DVD releases. Some of the Tories movies do be kind of hard to watch. Like me, Bryan, and Zontarr, and Chris was there for a few of them. We got into the Aztec mummy movies, as a lot of people know, especially in the Discord. A lot of them movies were really, really. Oh,
there is one more among us.
You're muted, man. But yeah, like the Aztec mummy movies were quite harsh on the eyes as well. So, I just listen. A lot of the Aztec mummy movies were quite harsh on the eyes as well. So it is kind of hard to get into that movie. So when they do release them on Blu-ray and they restore them the right way, which the copy I watched on YouTube was actually quite well, I have to admit. Just to segue off that a little bit, I'm not sure if anyone, just before I go over the ending, because the ending's going to take a little bit, because for a 1930s movie, this was a pretty daring ending, in my opinion. But did anyone here know this was going to be, I don't know if it was Blumhouse or another studio was trying to remake this movie a couple of years ago. So, like, we could see a remake of this movie within a couple of years. That would be interesting to see.
As I've stated with my distaste of Blumhouse, I really genuinely hope it's a different studio. And even then, it would be very hard to get and this is just my opinion, it would be very hard to capture that same feeling. Like everything, I don't know. It depends on how it is. I think the closest we'll ever come to a even similar film would probably be Serpent and the Rainbow, and I still need to watch that.
I've heard of it. I've not watched it, and I've not read the non-fiction book it's based off either.
See, even that right there, it's already a spiritual successor. Both are based on non-fiction books. Both are made by pretty decent directors. In this case, in Serpent and the Rainbow's case, I mean, it's Wes Craven, and both deal with voodoo in their own regard and, zombieism.
Yeah, and basically, if someone were to claim, oh, so-and-so zombie film is a spiritual successor to White Zombie because it's based off of a book, if it's based on a fiction book, I'm going to have to say no.
I say spiritual successor in like the fact that would probably be where a remake would more lean toward of White Zombie. It would probably lean more towards something like Serpent and the Rainbow than the predecessor. But that's really an argument for another podcast, in my opinion.
I could be wrong and mixing up Blumhouse with somebody else, but I'm pretty sure it was a really popular modern studio that was looking to do it a couple of years ago. I agree with you.
Yeah, I just looked it up on Wikipedia. There was originally going to be a remake of White Zombie in 2018 by Blumhouse Productions under the leadership of Jason Blum, but it is unknown whether those plans are coming in the future or not.
I hope not.
I mean, that was 8 years ago, so...
And let's hope it stays 8 years in the past.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you there, man. Because all we'd get is a squeaky clean modern horror movie that's not daring whatsoever.
Yeah.
That's
Personally, I probably prefer what they're doing with the Universal Monsters comics, like a comic book miniseries. It could be telling the story from a different perspective. It could be a sequel, or because I recently read The Invisible Man one, it could be Murder's origin story. Like The Invisible Man, we got Griffin's origin story, so there you go.
I'm open to seeing something of a prequel, but it's just the fact of if you're gonna do that at that, like especially at this point now, you might as well just do a remake. And like Randy said, it's literally just gonna be nothing more than a sanitized version of a sanitized shell of what the original one really was. It's not gonna have at all the same scare factor, I guess, as the original one does.
Yeah, and it's coming from a time when voodoo isn't quite as big as it was in the 1930s. I mean, literally in 1936, Orson Welles, at the age of 21, produced the first all-black production of Macbeth, and it's been nicknamed the Voodoo Macbeth because it's set in Haiti, and instead of witches, we have voodoo witch doctors.
And that's another thing. Like, even if they do remake it, there has to be that form of representation of the voodoo community and whatnot. So, are they going to make Murder Legendre a black man? And if so, who would play him? Because Idris Elba would not be a good choice.
And
I would like to recommend Lawrence Fishburne or Nonzo Nosey. Or Denzel Washington. Can't forget that.
I was
Washington.
literally thinking, I was not going to lie, I was thinking Denzel Washington when you said Lawrence. I was like, so it's either Lawrence or Denzel. And I was going to say I could probably see Denzel playing like a very elegant, like Murder Legendre in that sense. Denzel would have been my choice as playing the role of Morbius in Forbidden Planet. But there's no way they could ever remake that. I've tried.
And like when you think about it, guys, like if you really watch this movie, it's like a lot of movies from the 30s. It's quite dated. It's quite the things that happen in this movie, even the way the way it would have been produced at the time. I don't know if anyone noticed the blackface in this movie. Just little things like that, like would hold it back from being properly remade. It would be a completely different movie if we did see something like that today. I think they'd completely modernize the setting. I think
I'm presuming you mean with the zombies, because I know some black actors were in the film, like the coachman in the beginning of the film. That's Clarence Muse, and he, of course, appeared at the end of his career in The Black Stallion. And yeah, black man, so we definitely know he's out on the blackface.
Yeah. And just little things that happen to Madeleine in this movie. Like it's, I can just imagine if they remade this movie, especially if it came from Blumhouse. It would have a modern setting. I doubt it would even be set in Haitian, in Haiti. I think it'd just be a generic zombie movie. It just probably wouldn't be anything like a Night of the Living Dead, George A. Romero sort of movie. But I just don't see a remake of it. Although it would be exciting, like this, the name White Zombie is quite cool. As we all know here, Rob Zombie named his first metal band after this movie. So,
Speaking of Madeline, yeah, if the comic book adaptation of The Mummy could make Helen the protagonist, then yeah, let's see Madeline as the protagonist for a new version of White Zombie.
because I actually quite enjoyed her in this movie as well. I'm just checking now which actress played her. Yeah, Marge Bellamy. Yeah, she was quite. Yeah, she would have been in a lot of more silent movies. Obviously, at the time of this movie, we're just into the talkies. So a lot of these actors would have been more prevalent in the silent era. But yeah, I really enjoyed her in this movie. That's what I didn't mind the acting in this one. For a budget of 50K, it wasn't as campy as I thought it was going to be going into it. You know, back to Lugosi. I think this is top 2, top 3 from what I've seen of his performances. Like, he was excellent as this role. Again, I don't know how to say his name. Yeah, definitely channeling a lot of Dracula in here. Chris, I wanted to ask you, man, what did you think of Lugosi's role in this one as the Haitian voodoo master?
I'm good to be calling. Let me go Lugosi first, as you're asking, and then let me come back into the Madeleine character, right? So there's just some subtle differences, right? Similar to Dracula, right? We're talking about somebody who's dominating the will of others for not altruistic motivation, right? This is feeding the addiction, either in Dracula, feeding the sexual addiction and feeding the bloodthirstiness. And now over here, we would just take the vampire element out, but this is the next door neighbor of that. He wanted to possess everybody who used to, all his former rivals, right? Now he knocked them all down into servitude, and now here's this beautiful woman that he's absolutely going to possess her, even to anyway. So as his foreshadow, right, he's taken the scarf from her early on, and so I mean, Bela had some subtle differences. Again, short in time, just 1 year apart from Dracula, but this wasn't exactly the same presentation he gave. That he made some subtle different choices in his acting compared to what he did in Dracula. And now to come back to our female lead, right? Just the use of her eyes, again, when she was in her natural state, right? She's interacting with her fiance or then her husband, and then the shift she made to then portray lifelessness, or just to cast her eyes off into the distance to convey that she was, her will was no longer her own. So credit to Bela for his acting choices, and credit to our lead actress for her acting choices.
Yeah, Madeleine was really good in this movie. Especially, we're going to get into the end right now, but yeah, talking about her rise, Chris, especially near the end when she's kind of coming off the course of being a zombie. So, solid acting, like shit. Like I really enjoyed her in this one. Zontarr, what did you think of Lugosi in this one?
Oh, fantastic. The short version. Yeah. One thing I caught is is that a nod to Dracula or a coincidence as he offers his visitor wine?
Oh, I love that.
Would you like some wine? It's just a year earlier, there's a famous wine line.
No, I never drink.
Yeah, and in addition to voodoo, there's also just the heyday of hypnotism. And there's a ton of screen villains that are doing hypnotism. I mean, it goes all the way up into the 60s, really. There's another hypnotist, and they're usually hypnotizing women. Yep, there they go again.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure this isn't the last role that Lugosi plays as a hypnotist either. Good call there, man. And what I liked about Lugosi versus this Dracula role, I actually preferred his lines in this one, especially his lines between him and Beaumont, especially kind of near towards the end where they're kind of battling between what do you want to do with Madeleine. there's some kind of funny, clever lines. I forget what he kind of says to Beaumont. He's leaning over the banister of the stairs, and he says something quite funny as well. I forget, but yeah. I even down to I enjoyed Lugosi's lines in this one. But to wrap up the plot though, Neill and the Doctor make their way to the plantation, or I suppose you'd call it the sugar mill where all the zombies are, where you have Madeleine, and it's kind of like a toss up. The Doctor kind of comes from Lugosi's back and knocks him out. That kind of what that does. That kind of like knocks off the control of the zombies. And one by one, the zombies just start flinging themselves off the cliff of this sugar mill, which is quite. I was like, what the fuck? Like this is a fucking crazy end. And it's for a movie of this time, especially comparing it to the likes of Dracula and all that. I thought it ended quite like tragic, even though we do get a kind of like nice little happy ending near the end of it. But and then I think Neill throws Lugosi over the cliff then as well, and you can literally see him fall into his death into the water. Done very well, I thought, and yeah, like it quite the creepy ending. I'd love to like that is the plot of the movie. What I want to touch on now just a little bit is the actual design of the zombies in this movie. I'm sure a few people here might have seen The Plague of the Zombies from Hammer. I think they took a lot of inspiration from this movie. They kind of have like white eyes with black smoke rings around their eyes, kind of dressed in kind of arbs, like robes. Quite different to what we would have seen maybe, 30 years later when we got that George A. Romero movie. Brian, what did you think of the design of the zombies in this one?
Yeah, it's very nice. It very much looks like, it's less
They are different.
generic undead and more like you can literally believe they're just people in a trance or something like that.
Brian, are you familiar with the Plague of the Zombies movie from Hammer?
Yeah, it's covered in the 100 Years of Horror episode about zombies, but I've not actually seen it.
It's set in an English village, and there's a voodoo master secretly in the village killing and controlling people. So it does take a little bit of inspiration from this movie. But yeah, I thought that was a quite interesting movie, because that Plague of the Zombies movie was the first zombie movie I would have seen a good couple of years ago. That kind of opened my eyes to what the original zombies were, because all that was in my head obviously was The Walking Dead, Night of the Living Dead, the typical zombie. So when I seen Plague of the Zombies, I was like, oh my god, this is set. This movie was released 5 years before what George A. Romero done. Quite interesting. And then years later, I found that there was this movie, Revolt of the Zombies. There's another movie. I'm not sure now if it's similar in a way, but there's another one called I Walked with a Zombie. I think that's from the 1940s. That's a little bit later. But yeah, if people like this one, like we could review a few more zombie movies, because it's voodoo zombies is interesting, and I wouldn't be so familiar about it, like, but if you look back into it, I read a little bit about it, like they think zombies kind of almost came from the Egyptian times, which were kind of thrown back to the mummy movies. I'm not sure how true that is, but zombies can be traced back to the Egyptian times. So
now, I ended up suggesting this because I was watching 100 Years of Horror. So here we are, and I do have this wonderful Word document inspired by 100 Years of Horror. We've got the subjects here. So White Zombie was covered in both the Bela Lugosi episode and in the Zombies episode, and I've just included the movies that I've seen that were covered in the various episodes under their respective subjects. So if we want to stick with Bela Lugosi, we could do The Body Snatcher, because explain things, if a movie appeared in was covered in a previous episode, I'm just gonna keep it under that specific, subject. instead of getting all repetitive. But under the zombies, we do have I Rocked with the Zombies, so Ela Ray, a Val Lewton film from the 1940s would be on the schedule.
I'm down, man. Again, that's another movie that I haven't seen. I would be down. I would be down to talk about that. I think these early zombie movies are quite interesting, and I don't know too much about them, so it'd be good to find out together. You know. But back onto this movie, like for the 1930s, it was such a hard, like, I suppose it's such a good decade for horror movies. You had the juggernauts like what Universal was doing. You had the likes of King Kong from RKO, fucking Dr. and Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, like fucking big, really inspirational horror movies at the time. And then I don't know, I could be wrong here, and I don't know how big this movie was at the time, but this one definitely slipped my radar for a good couple of years. I've always heard about this Lugosi zombie movie, but I can't believe this slipped my radar for so long, because although, as I said earlier, like, it's a low budget movie, they make great use of these sets. Lugosi is as good as ever. If like Ferry competes with Dracula for me, on like with his role for Dracula, and that might be a little bit controversial as Chris unmutes his mic, but this movie is fucking fantastic. I'm still debating on what I'm going to give my score, but you just can't beat these 1930s movies. Like, these are always my favorite movies to talk about. As of recently though, like, I've kind of moved away from the older horror movies and get more into like the 50s, 60s sci-fi movies, which Zontarr here on the panel is a big fan of and does share a lot of them into the Discord. And
Same.
yeah, and Fiend Without a Face. Well, speaking about the Discord, I am going to leave a link in the description if people want to join that. We're almost near 40 members now. It's a great place for people to discuss movies, show recommendations, show your figures, all this type of stuff. And we also record our shows here. So yeah, I'll leave a link in the description along with everyone else on the panel's shows. And yeah, make sure you check out the description on this show. But guys, that's the end of the review of this movie. I want to go through the panel now, starting with you, Bryan, and going down of your rating of this film. Out of 5.
Gonna give it a 5. I've not seen many zombie films, but I don't know. That's probably because I have a general preference for the voodoo style, because I don't know, I feel like the non-voodoo zombies just appear too much nowadays. Yeah, Bela Lugosi, Joseph Cawthorne, the wonderful sets. It's just a really good film.
Yeah, man, I would be a bit of a fan of the genre, the zombie genre, but it's like I said, it's very saturated. It's like as soon as we got The Walking Dead, the 11 seasons of The Walking Dead, we've seen everything that could be done with the George A. Romero type of zombies. Which that's why I'm kind of a little bit optimistic on a remake of White Zombie. Like, bring voodoo zombies back, people. Like,
Yeah.
There's a lot you can do there.
Yeah, when I was in high school, I was in a movie for the film club, and it was a zombie film, and unfortunately it was not voodoo zombies. They showed us Day of the Dead to get us into it, and oh dear God. I mean, sure, I went along with it, but when it came time for me to be killed off, I did actually flip the camera both middle fingers.
I actually I'm watching the movie as we're talking about it. Like I'm listening to everything. I have the movie practically on mute, and I just realized I'm pretty sure I recognize one of the Universal sets. It's at the end of the movie when Neill is walking down and he kind of walks into like where the water is all flowing and whatnot. I'm pretty sure that's the set from Phantom, or at least one of the sets of Phantom, where it's like underneath under the Paris Opera.
I was thinking that too. Like, I can't say I know for a fact, but I can say right there, I agree with you that it had that absolute look, and I'm largely sure that it was the Phantom set.
I've watched a lot of there's this documentary. It's on I want to say it's on many of the Universal DVDs after the 90s. I know it's part of the Legacy collection. It's called Universal Horror. And they talk about the Phantom sets, and they show like the designs that were drawn by the set designer, and then they show the sets and like how they were built and whatnot. So I want to say they show that particular set design where the stairs kind of spiral down in a way, and it's like, yeah, that looks somewhat similar. I might be wrong, but I realized that observation. It was kind of that Leonardo DiCaprio moment. So, hey.
Yes, just one side note here, but for comic book fans, Dracula fans, or Bela Lugosi fans, or if you're all, there is a graphic novel titled Bram Stoker's Dracula starring Bela Lugosi, and it's an adaptation of the novel, but Dracula is designed to look like Lugosi.
I might have to seek that out.
Chris, man, what you rating this movie out of 5?
I'm going to go 3.5 out of 5, and here's my backstory or my explanation, my work. How did I get to my answer? I would be able to bump my rating up if they had given Bella some more screen time. Now, I just think, again, maybe I'm making an unfair comparison to Dracula, where I didn't take the minute counter and establish that he had more screen time in Dracula, but I just felt more Bella equals a better rating for me. Again, I really like the subtleties. It was so similar to Dracula, but he did make some different choices. There, that hand clutch gesture, right? So Dracula. Okay, so let me speak on that. Right, the use of the Dracula hands, the come here with the drawing someone in with the hand motion, right? But now we have a different hand motion with that double-handed clutch at his belt line. So again, really interesting stuff. And yeah, if it had been more Bella, I'd give it a higher rating, but it's completely enjoyable. And, you could say deeper cut, right? The character of Murder and the name of the White Zombie movie are not, in that upper echelon tier, as is, Dracula, Frankenstein, Wolfman, Creature, Mummy, and all that. But it absolutely, if you want to invest in the genre, then this is absolutely the right movie to be viewing.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. Like I think if anyone wants to see more of what Lugosi can do, I think this is right just underneath Dracula. And we're seeing Lugosi in a lot of roles, some not so good, some pretty good, but this one's definitely up there. Yeah, and Fiend Without a Face, I did notice some sets, not that particular one, but that's interesting, man, and that just makes this movie fucking even cooler, I think. But Fiend Without a Face, what would you rate this one, man, out of 5?
I would have to give it a solid 5. I would probably go more closer to 4.8 out of 5 for me, because yes, there is a lot of that absence of Lugosi, and it tries to focus on two separate things towards the end instead of just staying on this one storyline. But at the same time, it's, again, a great series of sets that we see that are used, some even recycled from other films. I'm not sure what movies, but we'll find that out later. Even what we have of Lugosi, he still gives a great deal of personality, and in my opinion gives way more personality than he does with the character of Dracula. Dracula is this very menacing embodiment, and here he's actually given people he's like, it's a living kind of eyes and stuff. In addition to these, the Lugosi stare, which I think, in my opinion, is done far better here, is more defined here than it was in the likes of Dracula. But other than that, trying to focus on two separate stories, and then it's like, oh, hey, yeah, by the way, we got to go back to this story, kind of hinder it from being a full 5, but still very solid, close to it nonetheless.
I'm going to go ahead, man, and agree with you there, especially on the Lugosi points. I was kind of hinting at it throughout the show that his role here is just as good as the Dracula role. I think we get to see a little bit more Lugosi articulating here in this role. He's a lot more with your lines, and I don't know, he just looks menacing. This one, of course, he's iconic as the Dracula, but I don't know. This was a very fun Lugosi movie, and as you said earlier, Bryan, he said this was probably one of his favorite roles. You said that, didn't you?
Yeah, it was one of his favorite films, according to his son, Bela Lugosi Jr.
So and you can tell, man, you can tell he was having fun with it. And I was reading again. The movie's so old. I don't really know if everything you read online is 100% about the movie, but apparently he's done a bit of directing as well. You see that, Bryan?
Well, that would definitely be. I have heard about that. It would definitely be a contributor to it being one of his favorites.
Yeah, so that would make a lot of sense. But Zontarr, what would you rate this one, man?
I'll go 4 out of 5. You know, I mean, gosh, I love the sets. I mean, you know, I know that it's sets, but there's Fitzrunk commits its own location. You know, it's so well done. You know, like all the big Caribbean islands have forts. You know, it's like, well, that could be a fort on Haiti. You know, you know, the sugar mill. It's like, okay, sure. You know, I could see that happening. You know, and like, okay, it's all backlot. Really? Okay, sure. Yeah. And you know, and Lugosi, I love the hand grab thing. Like, okay, he's using his powers now, and it's it's the character. My only complaint is this character has no backstory. It's like, boy, what's this guy's deal? You know, how did he become a voodoo and Hibbits is a master in Haiti? You know?
Yeah, that's the only kind of like backstory we get of Lugosi when he's explaining what happened to these previous zombies that he's controlling. That he killed one of his previous voodoo masters. Yeah, so it would have been nice to see a little bit more about Lugosi. I'm gonna go the same as Zontarr here, and I'm gonna give it a 4.5 out of 5. This is a top tier 1930s movie. But what does bring it down for me is what Fiend Without Face have to say. And it does split off when it near the end of the movie and tries to catch up with itself near the very end, which doesn't hinder like the final ending, which thankfully it doesn't, because the ending of this movie is fucking fantastic, I thought. But it does. It kind of runs away from itself at times, and it brings it back in. But at least I thought the characters were at least interesting, even a little bit. I thought Madeleine was great. The Neill character, although at times a bit of a fucking cook, like I enjoyed him as well, and of course Bela Lugosi and Beaumont like was just as much as a scumbag as Lugosi in this one. Like proper fucking evil fucking dickhead what he was trying to do with Madeleine. So yeah, I'm going to give that a 4.5 out of 5. And that's basically our review today. But before we get off, guys, I just wanted to say, like, I know we're finished about talking about these fucking mummy movies. People are probably sick of hearing about the Mummy, but did anyone here get to see the latest one in the theater?
Not yet, but be it in the theater or on DVD, I won't see it.
I read the plot and I literally was thinking to myself after reading it, I'm like, okay, no, this is like, there's some points I was like, okay, I can see where it's trying to go with like the idea of the mummy. But then I was like, this is the Evil Dead script Sam Raimi rejected, I feel.
I suppose some people could like it for that reason, but if you're classic horror fans such as ourselves, like, we're gonna pick it apart saying that like that's based on that Mummy movie, and that's basically what it was. It was a possession movie, a little bit of possession movie, but especially towards the end, if anyone here has seen it, it's full on Evil Dead, and it makes sense because the previous movie that director done was Evil Dead Rise. It's a step up above that movie. Sorry, Bryan, go on.
Maybe we'll review that movie when when the next Brendan Fraser film is coming out, and we're, back at we continue from where we left off, basically.
Yeah, we could.
Oh, wait, why review that Mummy movie when we could just review everything else that's better?
True. But that could be interesting. But we could do a Mummy Saga Part 2. That could be it. Did you not see the movie yet, Zontarr?
Yeah, I did watch the pitch meeting. If you're familiar with pitch meeting, there's a guy that does these pitch meetings on YouTube, and he just completely skewers the plots. And he warns ahead of time that it's full of spoilers, but I watched it anyway because I don't care that much about this movie one way or another. So it was spoiled, but he rips the plot apart in a really humorous way. I recommend it after you've seen the movie if you care.
I'm vaguely familiar with that series, so
Yeah, there's a whole lot of them. He
Sweet.
cranks them out. I recommend it.
Oh shit, must check that out, man. That's quite an interesting thing
Yeah,
to do, I think.
he does it for every big release, in the last 10 years. He's got one, and he's a really good critic of, like, of course, modern fantasy, sci-fi. There's stuff that just makes no sense, and he just always finds it and makes jokes about it.
Yeah.
Why does this happen? So the movie can happen.
That does sound good. He sounds like a good critic. He's just not as good as us, Zontarr.
Throw a link to it right now.
But if anyone here who did not see it, I probably would just wait for the physical release to get it, because it being without a face put the nail on the head there. It's basically an Evil Dead movie, which could be fun, but when it has the hype of a mummy movie with the mummy name. I was reading, actually, like, it was originally meant to be called The Resurrection, and I don't know, maybe something happened halfway through production. They said, yeah, maybe stick the mummy name on it because nobody's gonna fucking watch it. So,
I was gonna say it probably would get more positive reviews with a title like The Resurrection.
it would have made a lot more sense, because that's what the movie was. It was the resurrection of the girl, and it's basically just about the little girl ripping shit up for the whole fucking movie. Like, it's the parents in the movie were dumb as rocks. Like,
Oh man,
not
not dumb as rocks. Not dumb as rocks, man. No, like they can't. No, they. We can go. I know. I feel like Jason Blum is going to somehow hear about this and be like, "We can go lower for the next movie.
Oh my gosh.
Let's lower that bar a little further."
Well,
Like that bar is pretty much about to be in hell at this point.
just I'm too critical on these, like, classic, like, movies that they end up remaking. The Wolfman, the Invisible Man. They just
But there is a comparable difference between the Invisible Man and the Wolfman, because, and I will say this, I have seen a bit of the Invisible Man and I liked what I saw. I can excuse the Invisible Man as a remake, but in the same light, I can't excuse the Wolfman, because at least with the Invisible Man, it tried to do as much, like, homaging to the original film, but also in a way is like an actual proper updating of that type of material. Whereas the Wolfman was like, hey, I got an idea. Let's take lycanthropy and turn it on its head. Hey, what if we call in, like, this title? Nah, I think we have a better chance at getting more asses and seats if we stick Wolfman on it. Okay. Like, that's basically what that was. At least with the Invisible Man, it was, in its own way, creepy, and it was able to update its source material. No longer is it a formula. It is this unique supersuit, which would be incredibly frightening no matter what. Like, because I think the last time we actually got a proper Invisible Man remake was Hollow Man, and that stars history's greatest monster, Kevin Bacon. But at least with, like, Invisible Man, it tried to update its source material, whereas Wolfman was like, let's just take this idea and just slap this IP onto it. Which, as you even said, is basically what they did with The Mummy.
That's I might have to go back and watch that Invisible Man after you said that now, because I don't know. I've seen it at the time, and just a mixture of the Tom Cruise Mummy. I'm losing faith in these kind of remake movies. I just think that they should maybe leave them alone for a little bit. Hammer done I doubt most people know about this, but Hammer done a Dr. Jekyll movie a couple of years ago with Eddie Izzard, and that was god awful as well.
No, not Eddie Izzard. No, Eddie Izzard is the queen. I would watch that movie. I would praise that movie. I feel, but I would also. The last time I watched Eddie Izzard in anything was what was it? The Richards.
Oh, I thought you were going to say.
No, I lied. No, it was 1313 Mocking. It was Mockingbird Lane.
That's what I thought you were going to say. Tying it all together as Grandpa Munster from the Munsters, bringing it back because Rob Zombie had been the producer on the 1313 Mockingbird Lane Munsters.
That I'm not sure about what you just said because all I heard was something Rob Zombie 1313 Mockingbird Lane.
Yeah, I'm saying that was the last time I saw Eddie Izzard as Grandpa Munster.
Oh yeah, no. Mockingbird Lane. That wasn't whatchamacallit. That wasn't Rob Zombie. It was a dark reboot that didn't know what it wanted to be, starring Jerry O'Connell, and Eddie Izzard was Grandpa, and it was pretty solid.
Oh my God, I'm blurring the two of them. You're right.
Yeah, because Rob Zombie did the movie The Munsters, which wasn't bad. It wasn't good, but it wasn't bad. It's certainly better than Scary Little Christmas. That's an episode for another time, kids.
Yeah, it was an interesting movie, that Monsters one. All right, but yeah, that's it for today's show, guys. If you made it this far, make sure you like the video, subscribe if you're on YouTube, hit the bell, leave a comment. If you're over on Spotify, make sure you leave a rating. Thanks for all the guys. Actually, Bryan, where can we find your stuff, man? Before we go.
You can find me on YouTube. Got my computer back. So I'm recording again. I'm playing on Vox Populi, the Minecraft server. Yeah, if you're ever on there, I'd be happy to go mining with you or something. I'm also doing readings. I'm reading King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table, and I'm also reading The Travels of Marco Polo, and I'm reacting to episodes of. Well, I'm reacting to the entire series, Monster Force. I'm going to do the entire series. And it's a fantastic series to watch. I highly recommend it.
Definitely, and I've actually been enjoying that Monster series, man, that you've been doing. Keep that up. That's I like, especially because you can play the entire episode on YouTube. Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you can, but you'd expect that, it would be copyrighted, but you could still show it, but you wouldn't be able to monetize it. But it's just the weirdest thing ever. Like, why has Universal forgotten the series they had made?
Yeah,
because they like money.
Mm.
It most likely it wasn't a very profitable venture for them. That's my only guess. But at the same time, why wasn't it a profitable venture? What stopped it from being a profitable venture? These are answers we need to know at some point.
Yes. Why did we only get half the series on DVD, leaving to the rest of that can be found on YouTube and the Internet Archive being VHS quality?
And why can't we make money off of it?
I can almost see a series like that maybe working even better, like today, Bryan, because like there's a big surgence of like fans getting into the Universal monster movies. That like the comic books are getting remade. We have the Blu-rays now. All the remakes are getting done. I don't know. Maybe an animated series like that could work now, rather than 20 years ago, 30 years ago when it was first released.
32 years ago.
Yeah, maybe the Universal name, Mummy, Frankenstein, Creature from Black Lagoon, just wasn't. There was no interest for it back then, which is a pity because if people go over and check Bryan's channel out of that series, the animation is fantastic. Like you're seeing all the classic monsters, and they're kind of depicted in a different sort of way. It has that kind of Saturday morning cartoon vibe off it, but still doused in the Universal monsters. I highly recommend people go over and check out that series. Chris, where can we find your stuff, man?
Yeah, it is a good series that Bryan's doing, and he's providing good coverage of it. I am Mr. C on YouTube. Mr. C dives in. Also Reddit, in the Svengoolie Reddit, in the Universal Monsters group on Reddit, and the Classic Horror group on Reddit. And depending on when this drops, I'll either be about to or just have this coming Sunday night for May 3rd. My guest on my channel will be the Dead Skeleton. And if you're unfamiliar with the Dead Skeleton, he's got a lot of personality, and I'm super looking forward to conversing with him.
He has a lot of personality, and he doesn't sound very dead.
Therein lies.
I was about to say the same thing. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, he seems pretty not dead for being a skeleton in person like this. Like,
Which is exactly why people should check out the Dead Skeleton channel and check out my conversation with him. Absolutely.
I'm gonna have to. I need to know how personal this skeleton in fact is. And I swear to God, if he is not a skeleton, I'm thoroughly going to be disappointed.
Hey, well, Sunday night.
So, if you're not doing that on Sunday night, make sure you go over to Chris' channel and check that out. I'm going to leave his link down in the description as well. So, please, everyone listen to the podcast, go and check out the guy's shows. You can find Zontarr and Fiend Without a Face over on Reddit, and you can also find them in the Classic Horror Fans Discord, which I said earlier. I have a link to that in the description. So, that's it for today, guys. We're going to figure out what we're going to do next week. Who knows? We might do something else. We've other guest panelists that, if anyone remembers from last week, and Visit Daddy, he was quite funny as well. We could end up doing an Invisible Batman movie. We might continue on with the zombie movie. Who knows? We might do one of Zontarr's picks as well, because a lot of people in that Discord have great taste in movies that I really want to discuss. So yeah, I want to say thanks to the panel. Thanks for all the guys for hopping on today. Really appreciate that, lads.
This was a
Thanks
lot of
much.
fun.
Yeah, thanks for hosting. Yep.
I like to talk about the Mummy movies, but we still need to talk about something else.
I was gonna say, you said if you're more into the voodoo zombie movies, Bryan, there's a movie that hybridizes both the Romero film zombie and the voodoo zombie, and I feel it's done fairly well. It was done in the 70s. It's called Zombie, from Lucio Fulci.
No,
Oh yeah.
not heard of that.
It's I have seen it, and I know a lot of people are gonna probably be like, "But wait, Fiend, no, this is in fact a sequel." No, it's not. This was only it's a sequel in name only. It was retitled as a sequel in order to connect to Dawn of the Dead. But in my opinion, like, if you're gonna ask me personally, like, oh, which do you think is better, Dawn of the Dead or Zombie? It's 100% Zombie. Zombie is a far, in my opinion, superior film to zombie genres as then. Fuck, I can't talk. Brain shutting down. But no, what I was trying to say is it's a better film to the zombie genre than Dawn of the Dead is. And by saying that, I'm pretty sure Chris is putting me on a hit list now. Well, come get me, buddy. Come at me, bro.
I'm not coming at anybody.
I just looked, the mic was muted. I was like, oh yeah, no. He's like this motherfucker. God damn it. But no, I would definitely recommend checking it out. Keep in mind, it does have more in line to the Romero zombie genre, but it does hybridize the voodoo aspect of zombieism than probably the modern stuff does. And I think it's a far better film on its own than being compared to something like Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, I have shared that Google Doc again. If anyone here wants to add anything like to the various subjects I've got on there, I mean, I have it divided by subjects. So if you think it would fit, yeah. So we always, geez, we just have so much to choose from, don't we?
Endless, man.
I was going to say, for this episode, you should probably link the Internet Archive article,
Magic
the
Island.
Internet Archive thing of the Magic Island to
Yeah.
the video, so that way everyone has a general context. Let's see if we can get some people to do this thing called read. I don't see a lot of that being done,
Yeah.
especially in the States.
Yeah, just put the link to the Internet Archive in the Discord. So yeah, but keep in mind it was written in 1929. So
Oh yeah, I forget about that. Yeah.
you see, 1929, kids, was a year that was almost 100 years ago.
It's It was kind of I had my ending to Save It Private Ryan moment when I was like, oh man, this show, like, it has to be like something from like the 80s or something. No, this show's like 32 years old. I felt myself carbon date. I wasn't ready for that, man. I didn't need that.
Yep.
Didn't need to be added like that, bro. I'm 33 years old. You mean to tell me I'm older than a series that lasted half a season? And you're just now reacting to this? So you swear, bro. So you swear.
Well, we're going to continue the shenanigans next week. Guys, thanks again for today. And for the listeners out there, yeah, catch us next week. See you on the next one.
All right, thanks.
I am Dracula.